Hi everyone, I'm Julie Taggart. I'm the Columbus College of Art and Design's Dean of the School of Studio Arts. Thank you all for coming to CCAD. We're excited to have Floyd Cooper with us here today, but I also want to tell you about some other programming that we have at CCAD. So as you may know, CCAD was founded in 1879. We've been educating talented artists and designers ever since. Our alumni have impacted the world and our city, and as President Corn says, if you've seen something cool in Columbus, it's probably because of CCAD and the CMA. So this year we're celebrating our 140th anniversary with a series of events. In the spring, two of our big annual events, Chroma and the CCAD Fashion Show, will highlight our 140th anniversary. Chroma is CCAD's annual student exhibition, and it's happening on Wednesday, May 8th. And the 2019 CCAD Fashion Show is happening on Friday, May 10th. In the fall, we'll have CCAD grads in the gallery celebrating 140 years of creative excellence. I haven't been here the whole time, by the way. Started, 20-something years ago, but, we've had good years before that. Galleries and institutions all around Columbus will showcase CCAD alumni artwork. I hope you'll also check out the work in the Beeler Gallery, which is you passed by when you came in the building. The current season, Arms, Ache, Avid, Eon, focuses on the individual practices of 4 core members of a queer art collective. It runs through March 17th. We also have the Spring Art Fair, Saturday, April 6th, and our MFA and MDes thesis exhibition opens Friday, April 5th. I'm getting tired just thinking about all the things coming up that we have to do. Speaking of which, our Masters of Design program is still accepting applications this fall, for this fall 2020. If you're interested, you can learn more at ccad.edu/MDes. We do also have a calendar of events, so I'm sure you weren't just writing down all these notes. But there's a calendar of events that's sitting on a table outside in the hallway, so if you, on your way out, want to pick up a calendar, that would be great. It's also available online at ccad.edu/calendar. All of this programming is possible thanks to the support of our partners, the Greater Columbus Arts Council, the Ohio Arts Council, the Skesto Endowment Fund for Visiting Artists and Lectures, and CD 102.5. And a lot of our funding from these organizations is based on data from events like this. So if you have time that you could grab a survey also on the table with the events calendar and fill it out, we would be appreciative. So now I'm going to turn things over to Deidre Hamler, who will talk about upcoming events at the Columbus Museum of Art. Deidre is an independent curator who served as a diversity and multicultural educator at the Columbus Museum of Art and the Walker Arts Center. She is co-curating with Carol Genscheft the 2020 exhibition Raggin' On Amina Brenda Lynn Robinson's House and Journals at the Columbus Museum of Art. Please welcome Deidre.
Good afternoon, and thank you. I will not be talking about activities coming up at the Columbus Museum of Art, but what I will be doing is giving a brief history of Rosa Parks, so just to set the stage for Mr. Cooper before he comes up to talk about his work. And I'm going to end this brief talk, it'll be about 5 minutes, with some words directly from Rosa Parks. Born to James and Leona Macaulay on February 4th, 1912, in rural Tuskegee, Alabama, and raised by her maternal grandparents, former slaves, Rose and Sylvester Edwards, on a farm in Pine Level, Alabama, Rose Louise would grow through poverty and racism to become the mother of the civil rights movement. And her name is Rosa Louise, actually. Taught to read by her mother, young Rosa attended segregated schools that lacked basic necessities. In one statement, it said they didn't even have desks. And she walked to school, to a one-room schoolhouse, while she watched white children being provided bus transportation daily to school. She left school to aid her sick mother and grandmother and took a job as a seamstress at a Montgomery department store. In 1932, after she met and married the love of her life, Raymond Parks, who was an early activist in the effort to free the Scottsboro Boys, and that was a celebrated case in the 30s, she earned a high school diploma and joined him in his civil rights efforts through the Montgomery, Alabama NAACP. In 1955, Mrs. Parks defied legal segregation by refusing to give up her seat to a white passenger on a Montgomery, Alabama bus line, and sparked a boycott by an estimated 40,000 African American workers that lasted 381 days. Working to eliminate segregation alongside her husband and notable leaders such as Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., Mrs. Parks would encourage a Black legal team led by attorney Fred Gray to take the issue of segregation on public transit systems to the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Alabama in the Northern Division, where in 1956, the court declared racial segregation laws, also known as Jim Crow laws, unconstitutional. When this decision was upheld on November 13, 1956, by the U.S. Supreme Court, the city of Montgomery had no choice but to lift its enforcement of segregation on public buses, and the boycott officially ended December 20th, 1956. Rosa and Raymond Parks suffered hardships with their employers following the boycott and ensuing court actions, and moved to Detroit, Michigan in 1957 to escape the retributions of a violent and racist South. Mrs. Parks worked for Congressman John Conyers and the 1st Congressional District of Michigan from 1965 to 1988. In 1987, she co-founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development with Mrs. Elaine Eason Steele in honor of her husband, who passed away in 1977. Rosa Parks would go on to receive the 1996 Presidential Medal of Freedom, a 1999 Congressional Gold Medal of Honor, a spot on Time's list of 100 most influential people, 43 honorary doctorate degrees, and dozens of monuments, city streets, and institutions named in her honor. Mrs. Parks authored 4 books: Rosa Parks, My Story, by Rosa Parks, with Jim Haskins, Quiet Strength, with Gregory J. Reed, Dear Mrs. Parks, A Dialogue with Today's Youth, with Gregory J. Reed, and I Am Rosa Parks with Jim Haskins. In her own words, which can be found at the Library of Congress online recordation of her papers, her memoirs, her writings, I found these words to be interesting. These are the words that she wrote, handwritten on, it looked like a notepad, after her arrest. I don't know if it was undated. I'm not sure if it was right after her arrest or sometime later, but these are her words. Quote, I had been pushed around all my life and felt at this moment that I couldn't take it anymore. When I asked the policeman why we had to be pushed around, he said he didn't know. The law is the law. You're under arrest. I didn't resist. I want to feel the nearness of something secure. It is such a lonely, lost feeling that I am cut off from life. I am nothing. I belong nowhere and to no one. There is just so much hurt, disappointment, and oppression one can take. The bubble of life grows larger. The line between reason and madness grows thinner. The reopening of old wounds are unbearably painful. Time begins the healing process of wounds cut deeply by oppression. We soothe ourselves with a salve of attempted indifference, accepting the false pattern set up by the horrible restriction of Jim Crow laws. Let us look at Jim Crow for the criminal he is and what he had done to one life, multiplied millions of times over these United States and the world. He walks us in with a tight rope from birth to the end of lifespan, whether it be of long or brief duration. Little children are so conditioned early to learn their places in the segregated pattern as they take their first toddling steps and are weaned from the mother's breast. Thank you. And now I would like to introduce Carol Genshaft. She is the curator at large at the Columbus Museum of Art.
Good afternoon. Before I have the honor of introducing Floyd Cooper to you, I want to thank collectors Ron and Eileen Frisch, and Ron is here with us right in front. It's very hard to sit here. Who have so generously loaned the original art and preliminaries for Back of the Bus that is located in Gallery 5 at the museum. The exhibition has been so warmly received that the run of it will be extended to May 5th. So if you haven't had a chance to see the beautiful work, know that you have a couple months yet to do that. I also want to thank Julie Taggart, wherever she is, and all the folks here at CCAD for collaborating and bringing Floyd Cooper to Columbus. Floyd Cooper is probably one of the best known, most celebrated, and highly regarded children's book illustrators in the country. He has won the Coretta Scott King Award and honor multiple times, including taking the top award for illustration in 2009 for Blacker the Berry. His most recent authored and illustrated work, Willie and the All-Stars, the story of an African-American child in 1934 who dreams of becoming a professional baseball player, has received starred reviews and critical acclaim. Floyd began his career while still a student at the University of Oklahoma. After graduation, he worked in advertising and then took a job at Hallmark Greeting Cards in Kansas City. In 1984, he headed for the East Coast and illustrated his first book, Grandpa's Face, and thus began a long, strong, and continuing career of book illustration. Mr. Cooper takes his work seriously. He says, and I quote, "I feel children are at the front line in improving society. This might sound a little heavy, but it's true. I feel children's picture books play a role in counteracting all the violence and other negative images conveyed in the media." It gives me great pleasure in having you join me. Welcome, Floyd Cooper.
Well, hello everyone. Friends and family, it seems. It's been a while. I've come to Columbus for quite a few times and made quite a few friends, and I see many of you in the audience today. Or maybe I'm hallucinating. Maybe having some horrible flashback. I would like to thank Carol Genshaft and, of course, Ron and Eileen Frisch for making all of this happen. A lot of my illustrator friends, very envious friends, are wondering, how on earth, Cooper? How on earth? Columbus Museum of Art. Well, it's because of the aforementioned friends that I've happened to get to know who got me into this situation here, and I'm really appreciative. I also see some other friends, Gary Brown and Tyler are here from, is it California? Oh, well, maybe right here in Columbus, perhaps. And I think, I believe Stella Dickman is here. So, oh, there she is. Oh, let's give Stella a big hand to say. She is probably the reason I know Columbus so well. Now, her and Floyd used to bring me in several times a year, it seems. Perhaps it was a little less, but it seemed like I was living here for a while. But it's great to be back amongst, I could say, family and friends. Now, I'm set up here. I brought my camera just in case. I hadn't planned on using this, you know, but I was hoping maybe someone would ask or request for me to do something with my little eraser. So I had this just in case. I mean, I hadn't planned on using it, but it's here. So maybe perhaps we'll do this for old time's sake. I have been doing this little technique that I use to start all my illustrations. It's a little thing that I would come in and, well, let me explain it. It's oil erasure is what it's called. I sort of gave it that moniker. because everyone's asking me, well, how did you learn it? Well, of course, it was a dark and stormy night at the Cooper house. I invented it all, it's all mine. That is not true, but it's something I'm working on. So I call it oil erasure, and I would, back in the days, in my younger days, I would come sliding in from the left stage here, just slide across the stage here, and, erasing as I'm sliding across the stage. And before I stopped sliding, there'd be an image of painting already done. You remember that, Stella? You remember it? Yeah. Maybe not. It probably didn't happen that way. Now we have this podium here, and I'm getting on. So I'm going to use this wonderful technology here to try to see if we can perform this a little bit better for you. I want to do this up front because it kind of is the base of everything else that I'll say tonight, and it really defines me, I think, at this point. Illustration is a very competitive field. We're clawing and scratching at each other, and when you can find some way of being distinctive or different from everyone else, that sets you apart. And that's kind of why I've chosen to use this technique to sort of set myself apart, and why my work has a distinctive look to it. And by the way, I'm using a lozenge here because I'm losing my voice. So I've been here for a couple of weeks now, talking a lot, and so if my voice goes out, we'll know the lozenge didn't work. Now I'm going to put this right over here where you can see it. And let's see, let me know if you can't see. What I'm going to do is start by explaining my eraser, which is a stretchy little thing, and it's something that buys my way into many a school visit. When you show up at a school with a stretchy eraser, you're in there, So that's my way, my little secret here. Now this is a coat of paint that I brushed on a piece of illustration board. Nothing fancy. And I coat it with a medium. This happens to be very thin oil paint that I brushed on just for you. Just for you, and we almost forgot it, but Sharon, I would love to have seen you dashing. We left it in the studio across the way there, and she went and got it for me. It was back in like 3 seconds. I don't know how you did that, but we have it here. Now, I'm going to see if we can do this so that y'all can see. What I do is just take this eraser, and it just sort of makes a shape. It comes right off on the eraser, as you can see. And you're not impressed yet. It usually happens a little quicker here. But we're going to see if we can see something from a series of shapes. Now, as a child, I would see things in shapes. I would gaze up at those big Oklahoma skies, and I would look at the birds. I was real fascinated by the birds, but just the sky in general. And so when I would see big fluffy clouds, I would see things. Those clouds would give me images, and I would just sort of compose my own little sort of stories based on some of the things that my mom would tell me. My mom told stories, and I would sit at her knee and listen to her stories, and she was a wonderful storyteller, and it sort of implanted the narrative sort of way of looking at things in my head from a very early age. Have we gone off the page yet? Yep. Push up a little bit. Now what I'm doing is just trying to find these shapes to come together to sort of speak to us in a way. And I'm thinking about my light source. Where's the light coming from? That is really the basis of this. So I just sort of balance the light and the shadows in a symphony, I guess you could say, that work together to produce something recognizable. Now, there's a textured surface here that really pulls me through my work, because this texture helps me to see things that aren't there yet, and so I can find my way quickly by doing that. And that is the whole basis, I believe, of painting representative art, is being able to see something that's not there, finding that foundation, someplace to stand, and then springing off of that. So what I'm doing is just trying to come around here and find little details that will help to give this picture that's narrative. And I'm not sure where it's going yet, but it's getting a little spooky. This guy looks like my Uncle Billy, and I don't know why this is happening now at this time in Columbus, Ohio. I'm seeing Uncle Billy here. But I want to show you very quickly a different way of making a shape. We're going to make a shape by using the negative space as well. So you can take away the background to make a shape. And that's another little trick that I'll show you here. before it's over, you probably have my whole lineup of secrets and will probably come after me, but I don't care. I don't care at this point. Please take it, use the ideas, and do with it what you will. Now, what I'm doing is trying to find the narrative here, but I guess you get the idea of how this all starts with this little eraser and how it all begins to come together. You can really control value very easily. You can go in and almost go back to the white of the board, so you get the whole range of values very quickly without drawing a single sketch, without drawing a single cross-hatched shape. And it's really very quick and easy for me, and fits in with my sensibility very well, as I hope that it does with some of you. I really enjoy sharing it with students because they are really open and ready for new approaches to things, learning new visual language, and this is really my hope that I can sort of inspire a young person to find their voice, their visual voice, and take this technique and take it even farther than what I've been able to do. The work that you see in the gallery, in the exhibit hall over there, are all started the exact same way with this process where I just use erasers to make shapes and actually try to have it be something presentable. We may give this away. I'm not sure if we'll give this to someone who wants it after it's done there. Okay, now, that's kind of the way that all works, and you might find it. I want to start at the beginning, if I might. I was about 3 years old when I drew on the side of our house. Don't draw on your house. I learned early that that wasn't a good idea. My dad was very upset. He was a builder. He built the house we lived in. It was 3 rooms, 3 little rooms in this house, and he was working on the outside of it, and on the ground it's a piece of sheetrock. You know, that stuff you make walls with. And I picked it up and just started scratching away, and it made marks on the house. So I really started going, and thought I made a nice picture of a bird, because I like birds, and didn't look like a bird to them. My mom brought me inside, set me down with root paper every evening, and we would practice the cursive alphabet. And that, I believe, developed my eye-hand coordination. There was also, we had a little TV on 4 legs sitting in one of those little, one of the 3 rooms in the corner of that house there. And there was a weatherman named Don Woods, K2L TV Channel 8. He would actually draw the weather. He would give the weather in the normal, boring way, and then he would draw it, and with a little character he called Gusty. And I would watch this little character every day. I didn't want to miss it. It was the first time I'd ever seen someone make a picture right in front of me with a marker or pencil, and it was so fascinating. And I just sort of clicked with it, and I was almost hypnotized by this every day. In fact, if I was outside, I could still hear my mom's voice. He's on. And I'd run in and try to catch Gusty and what he would look like on this particular day. Those are rabbit ears, by the way, for you. Most of you who don't know what those are there. I kept drawing, and eventually would find ways of getting art paper and art supplies myself, making them up in ingenious ways. I would go to the grocery store and use the brown paper bags and cut them up into sheets, had my own art paper, and I would use chalk from school to draw on that. Yes? Oh, I'm sorry, you guys are there to do that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. We have technology, and therein is the problem. So I'm going to see if I can do this without anyone. Okay, can you guys see it okay? Not yet. Is it up there now?
Yeah.
We have a message. It says okay. Is this your laptop?
Oh, thank goodness.
Oh. Yusef, everyone. This is Yusef. Let's get Yusef. He's capeless tonight. He doesn't have his cape, but he's still here to help. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Let's go. Whoop, 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 whoop. You didn't see that. Erase that. That's good. Thank you. Can you guys see now? Yes. Gusty. There's old Gusty, the weatherman. Those were rabbit ears. You were looking at my ears. Weren't you? Oh my gosh. I never get to sleep tonight. Okay, well, you'll never see that sort of thing happen again. So it's been a unique experience so far for you. I'm here to help. Now, yes, I grew into a precocious little kid, making my own art supplies wherever I could. But we were a family of very limited means, I guess, to put it mildly. I grew up mostly in low-income housing, and my folks were divorced early in my life, and we moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. There are 11 elementary schools in Tulsa, Oklahoma, North Tulsa, and I attended all 11 elementary schools. My family moved so much, sometimes I'd come home to an empty house. So I got real used to moving a lot. And I also discovered the currency of my art, because every time I got to a new school, I found that I could buy myself a new friend by showing the art teacher some of my art. I began to realize the value of my art, and it became further embedded in what I would later become. This is a picture of me and my sisters and my brother. I was the oldest when my folks weren't around, so I was the boss. And I let everyone know it too. I walked around with my coat pulled back, showing off that badge. I still have a crook in my arm. But it was very, very nice to be in charge, be head of the household. Of course, I don't know what it feels like to be any other way. I do know that we had a little dog named Billy, and I kind of miss Billy. Billy was special, you know. It's irreplaceable, Billy. Actually, he didn't know he was a goat. He would fetch, he would roll over, and that was a cool little pet to have in Oklahoma. My first book was a little golden book without a cover. A friend of mine sent me this book, which evidently Golden Books are still making, and I get to see it with the cover, and I realize now why I like this book. It has my initials on the fire truck. Okay, maybe that's what it is. When I was 7, for my birthday, someone gives me the most incredible gift you could ever imagine. It was a special gift. It was just a marvelous, wonderful gift. A little tray of watercolors with a scraggly brush. And I went out and started painting stuff. It was as if a dam had burst and all this started flowing out. I painted this, I painted that, and when I was 9 years old, I made a picture of my grandparents' house. And my teachers started to notice, and they would say good things in my ear. You know what happens when your teacher says good things in your ear? Well, the more they said, the more I drew, and I drew and drew myself into an art scholarship to the University of Oklahoma. And that's how I got out of the projects and into college. Now, I went to OU and I began to realize and learn that you could actually make a living with art. Up until that point, I was being groomed by my great aunts and my not great aunts and all of my aunts to be a doctor. They wanted me to go to med school. But I learned in college that you could actually make a doctor's income perhaps sometimes if you, and I could do it doing something that I love, which was a very wonderful thing to find. And it led to me pursuing this with much more ardor, I guess you could say. My first job, I was mentioned, was with Hallmark cards, but it wasn't as easy as it sounds. My professor in college was dead set against anyone going to Hallmark. He despised Hallmark. And when they were on campus interviewing, he didn't even let us know that they were there. And I had told him, I told him that that was what I wanted to do. I was in love with an early childhood education major. She'd gotten a teaching job in Kansas City, Missouri. And I had planned to go work at Hallmark, and we were gonna build this little picket fence, and it was gonna be, you know, pipe dream heaven. And he never let me know. And so I ended up having to go around the long route to get into Hallmark. And I don't want to take you through the pain of all of that, what that all entailed. But Hallmark is a privately held company. It doesn't, the sons don't quite have the business acumen as J.C. Hall, the dad, and so it's somewhat mismanaged, particularly in the portfolio area of the company. So I ended up trying several times, trying to get into the company, and finally got a break by meeting someone who knew someone, and I got a job working in the back of Hallmark Arts, a little department called Revamp. Revamp is where we would take art from the Hallmark vault, come up and change it. We would erase it and make it into something more marketable. Little pigs became little bunnies, peonies became daisies, and it was a pretty quick and fast, easy job, but I was working in the back of the company. I began to realize the hierarchy of the artists at Hallmark. The real artists looked down upon us revampers because we were first taking an eraser to someone else's art, and second, we were revampers. So they beat us up after work and took our lunch money. It was a tough life. But Hallmark had a way of getting out of revamp, and that's by having your ideas accepted. So you do a pencil drawing like this, send it into the Hallmark committee, they would advance you. And I never got advanced. I never got a chance to make a greeting card because Hallmark rejected all of my ideas. They kept turning them down. But Hallmark had a large room full of free art supplies. Free. And every time I got rejected, I'd go and load up. And therefore, there was balance in the universe. While at Hallmark, I met many great friends. I had some friends from Brooklyn who taught me much, Bed-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. These guys showed me how to get more art supplies. So they gave us, Hallmark gave us this big giant Ziploc bag. It was see-through. And the reason it was clear was so that anything you put into that bag, you could get past the security guard. And if you wanted to work at home, you could put things in this Ziploc bag and take it home. Well, my friends from Brooklyn actually got a drawing table, a swivel chair, and a desk lamp into that bag, right past the security guard. And I didn't quite go that far, but I'm still using brushes from Hallmark. Thank you very much. They also brought in the best. They believed in the best in art supplies, the best in everything. And they brought in some of the top-notch illustrators in the country. John Collier, Bernie Fuchs, and they brought in one summer when I was there, Mark English. And I wasn't allowed to go to the workshops because I was a revamper. But my friends from Brooklyn, we snuck into the workshops, and I got a chance to meet Mark English face to face, and immediately spilled my tale of woe of how I was stuck in the back of this company, and I could really draw, but I'll never know, they'll never know this, and I just spilled my heart out, and he felt sorry for me and asked me to help him on a few jobs. Some of the other illustrators that were major, besides Mr. English in my career, of course, were the greats Howard Pyle and Maxfield Parrish and N.C. Wyeth, and even photographers like Ansel Adams. And I really enjoyed Ansel and the sort of times that he lived, where his whole thing was precision and realistic beauty. And then this guy named William Mortensen. I don't know if you know William Mortensen, is sort of arch rival, I guess you could say, who would actually take an X-Acto blade to a photograph. He believed in fantasy and the art, the photograph being something you could manipulate and change. He's probably the early cursor to photo illustration, I guess you could say. But it drove Ansel Adams crazy that this guy was out here making money with his little scratch on images here. Some of the others are N.C. Wyeth and Etienne Delasart, David Grove. This is one of my heroes, Mr. Bernie Fuchs, in his studio. And you can see here that where I get my leanings for erasure and that type of artwork is from the techniques that he employed in his paintings, where he would rub off oils from canvases, and this sort of impressionistic style that really did ingrain in me. Here's Mr. English in a studio that looks much like mine. That's what happens with heroes. You tend to take on their habits and the way they lay their studios out. But Mr. English asked me to help him on a few projects, and one of which was the Land O'Lakes account. This was done for Land O'Lakes butter. I don't know if you remember the butter. The way it worked is I would do the black and white part, the famous guy would do the color, Mark English would do the color, and then Mark English would sign his name to the whole job. Because he was, after all, the famous guy. It evolved to me doing everything. I found that I was doing the color, the black and white, everything, the entire painting. Mark English would only come in to sign his name. I got a little suspicious. This is the very first picture ever made with an eraser. I was very proud of it. When the famous guy came in to sign his name, I stood up, looked him right in the eye, and stopped him. I said, hold on, this has to stop. It's not fair, it's not right. I'm doing all the work, I'm doing the color, black and white, everything. You're just coming in and you're just. And then he hands me $3,000. And I go, you're only gonna sign your name. I sold out for the cash. I decided to take that $3,000 and move to New York City. Moving to New York City with $3,000. Stupid. I loaded my little truck up, moved right out to New York, and I get to New York and discover my mistake. New York is a giant city with giant buildings, giant talented people, giant football players. And I just couldn't get a break. I'd go out every single day looking for work, come back with nothing but rejection. And after 3 months, the money ran out, and there I was stuck in New York with no money and no job. I was just about ready to quit and give up when I stumbled into a company that made textbooks. I believe it was Scott Swarsman. They sent these little jobs for me to do, these little half-page illustrations, and I was able to piece together enough money to be late with my bills every month. And along the way, learning valuable lessons about being an artist, learning about deadlines and how important they are. I made a promise, of course, that I would never be late with a painting, but of course that didn't hold up too long. These are some of the other things that I did. I went to work at a toy company designing toys. This little toy company called Olmec that's now part of Hasbro. And this is a character I made called Sunman. His arch enemy there, Pighead. I'll name a toy Pighead. Then I met my wife. My wife is my agent. I repeat, my wife is my agent. Oh, you don't know what that means, do you? You don't know what I'm living under. The tyranny. The iron fist of a lady with the power of the calendar. One little argument, I'm in Skokie for 3 weeks thinking about what I said. She can send me away when she thinks she wants to, and nothing to say, and she's not giving that power back. She's my agent, and I love her very much. That is my son, my oldest son, who is now a lot older. He started his own business and has a family now, and just made me a grandpa, but who's counting? Oh, yes, oh, thank you, yes. Old Dayton there. This is us at a later picture here. We wore badges in our house. Get your family some badges. Put them around your neck. You look down and there's your name and you remember where you're supposed to be, like that. And you see Dayton didn't need a stinking badge, and that's why I like his other picture better. It has been absolutely fantastic just hanging out with you. Oh, here's Nico. It's my grandson, Nico. He likes keeping his cheeks full of goldfish, and Grandpa taught him that. Yeah, keep those cheeks full of goldfish crackers. My first book came quite by accident. I didn't realize I was doing a book when I worked on this book. I did the artwork in about 4 days, and it comes back with my name on the cover, written by Eloise Greenfield, of all people, the great Eloise Greenfield. And it helped me to enter the picture book industry with a splash, being paired with the famous Eloise Greenfield. I'm sure that was by design for the publisher's business model or whatever, but this little book changed my life, and I've now done quite a few more. There's some Coretta Scott King winners, and my favorite story, Be Good to Eddie Lee, and this one, the Coretta Scott King Award. Now, there's the Coretta Scott King Honor, there's the Coretta Scott King Award. Back before I won the award, I didn't make too much distinction about the two. When someone say, oh, he won the Coretta Scott King Honor, I go, yes, the Coretta Scott King Honor. But now there's a big difference, of course, between the honor and the actual award. And we want to make sure that that's cleared up. This book has been hitting Facebook pretty much these days, probably based on what happened in Hollywood recently with the movie The Green Book. This is the real story of the Green Book, written by Calvin Alexander Ramsey. And I hope you find this wonderful story of this little girl as they try to navigate Jim Crow South using the Green Book. And you all know what that is, right? The Green Book, yes. Max in the Tagalong Moon. It's my favorite story of all the ones that I've done here, and it's picked up by Dolly. I love Dolly. Dolly, yes. If I could see her right now, I'd just pick her and grab her and hug her and pick her up. When she puts her stamp on your book, they have this little chart that you look at, and it's like this. Dolly books. But I've just found out I'll be going to visit Dollywood later this summer, so maybe she'll pick me up. I don't know. She seems to like my books there, so that's great. These are some of the many books. If you look at them all at once, it's a little disconcerting, so don't stare at that. Now, so that's pretty much it. You guys saw the way I used the eraser, and it's something that I've developed over time. I've also developed a way of working where I put my work on the wall, so you can see it all at once. It's very important that I'll be able to do that. I used to work like, just sort of filing through it like that, but when you see it all at once on the wall, it does make a big difference with the way that you see the entire book. It helps with the narrative flow of the art. So I'm learning little tricks here and there as I go still, even after having done this. It starts with little tiny thumbnails, and they blow those up, put the type in as quickly as possible. And the energy of that thumbnail is something that I'm working hard at trying to maintain throughout the painting process. But sometimes things tend to tighten up as I start to put the pencil sketch in, that sort of thing. It gets a little tighter. But I really like to try to maintain that energy of the thumbnail. So we're still working on that. I'm letting you know everything. I'm just bearing it all tonight. So if you guys have any questions, I think we should be able to do that. Should we take a few questions? Are we okay with time? Does anyone have a question? Yes. Oh, hi. How are you?
Do you normally stand up when you do your drawing?
Am I standing?
No, in your studio.
Oh, no. Oh, no, the old picture. Yeah, that was that was the early days. I got my swivel chair out of the layaway last week, so I can sit down now. Who else has a question there? Yes.
Do you discuss the visuals with the authors as you're working on them?
Sir, leave the room right now. How dare you? Please, we can't let that out. That doesn't happen. Usually they try to keep us apart for good reason, no doubt. That's a great question, by the way, and I was only kidding. No, we don't work together. We don't work together. Sometimes if an author has publishing clout, they can send me things and it gets through to me, but otherwise the publishers filter that out. I've gotten manuscripts where things have been clipped and didacted, I guess, or painted white out or whatever to delete any descriptive passages. They sort of want the art to develop in its own domain and the text to sort of reside over here and then have it come together. Or maybe it's just that they need a reason for existence. The art director needs something to do. So you don't go until I tell you to go. Come over here, give me that, put it together, becomes a book. But there are a number of reasons why that is, I guess. All right? So no, I don't work with the author. Hello?
A follow-up on the gentleman's question.
Yes.
I mentioned to you about the notes in the exhibit.
Yes.
Some of the pieces and the interaction. How does that play into how you answered his question? It seemed like there were comments and things, do this or smaller, this.
Oh, the notes, you mean from the editors? Oh, yes. I think I have an example here. This is a book about a little girl who wants to be a ballerina. And her mom is a seamstress for the ballet company, so she gets exposed to the ballet from the wings of the stage there, off the stage. And she dreams of being a ballerina, and she goes to the rooftop in Brooklyn looking for a star to pin her hopes on. Of course, because of light pollution, there are no stars in the sky in Brooklyn, so she just continues in vain to look for this star. But you can see some of the early ideas, how it starts with a simple idea and then it grows into something that I think might be a good idea, and I end up finishing it, and then the publisher cuts it and becomes something else in the book. So sometimes that happens. But you can see how I've shown this little girl, tried to show her world, I guess, and sort of show her environment, and how she would go and sitting on a basket of her mother's laundry would wish upon a star to be a ballerina. And this scene in the middle of the book is where the ballet master sees the little girl rehearsing off to the side and is so impressed that he grabs the little girl's face in his hands and says, "Brava mon petit," which is a good thing, you know. And so he puts her into a dance class based on that movement. So I illustrated it with a really close-up image. I thought it sort of called for that. And my editors sent back a message saying that the little girl's hands were too large. And now I know my drawing is lacking, but I had to send it right back with a little message. These are the ballet master's hands. They were really ready to cut this image from the book, and sometimes you make a decision on when to fight for your art and when to stand up for when it's important. To me, I think even now when I read that book, this is the pivotal moment of the book when you can see how the image is sort of is the apex of the book there, right? So sometimes you have to know when to fight and when to sort of give up and let go. This little girl was great for posing for this book because she wasn't trained as a ballerina, and so I needed that. I needed to have that sort of awkwardness that comes where the hands aren't just right. Now initially I had her posed on top of that chair until Velma comes in and kicks me in the leg and get her down off that chair. And so we thought of a way to have her sort of sitting safely on the chair. And so I took the drawings and played with the hands a bit, and it ended up being her doing a grand jeté in the ballet. Sometimes I'm lucky I could find some research of a bust. This is perfect for me because there's no color. All there is just a likeness carved out of stone, and that's great for making a painting from because you can really have creative freedom to go in and illustrate what this guy must have looked like. I was illustrating James Lafayette, who was a double agent. He was a double spy for the British as well as the American colonists. And Lafayette was a French general, of course you all know, came over and he asked that this slave be given to him. He was a slave, brought him in from being a slave and recruited him to be a double agent. And after he had done his heroic work, which is quite incredible, he was returned to the slave duties. And Mr. Lafayette came in and said, no, we won't have that. Free this man. And so James took on Lafayette's name, and that's why his name is James Lafayette. Now in Prospect Park, Brooklyn, there is a frieze in the park with a plaque at the bottom, and the plaque describes Mr. Lafayette and his steed, his horse. There's no mention of this guy standing here. It's like no mention at all. So we're working real hard with the New York City Parks Department to get that all straightened out because that gentleman is Mr. James Lafayette. It's important that I think we have that be included on the plaque, so we're working on that. Here's the book written by Anne Rockwell and some of the images from the book here. Okay, anybody else? Yes.
How are you paired with the authors? I mean, do you have authors that request you? Or, I mean, I'm seeing you with Walter D. Myers, I was thinking like, oh man.
Yes, that's what I said. I'm like, oh man. Walter D. Myers. I think the editors probably have certain marketing plans in place when they do certain things, I suppose. I try to stay out of that sort of thing. I get calls from the publishers usually to do the books.
Do you ever ask, or, I mean, do you ever say, oh, I'd love to illustrate a book by Walter D. Myers, or?
No, I haven't, but thanks for giving me that idea. I think I'm gonna go home and do that right now. I'm beginning to realize I can do that, right? I can do that. Go in and ask for that.
Well, I was gonna say, you know, I think you've reached that level in the hierarchy of illustrators.
Beg pardon? Oh. No, I think I do want to try to do that, perhaps. Yes, absolutely. This book was written, you know, before Walter passed away, of course, and I didn't work fast enough, of course, for him to see the end of it there. But I'm really fortunate that I was able to work on that, and it may be because of, you know, like so-called notoriety that led to me being able to do that illustrated book. I've only written one book that was requested by someone. Candy Dawson Boyd wrote, it's a book about a little boy and his father, and it's called Daddy, Daddy, Be There, that's what it is. And she asked me to show that to my editor, and I did. I showed it to Patty Gouch, and Patty Gouch made it into a book. based on someone asking for it. So it does happen, you know, it does happen. Anybody else? Yes.
So for someone eventually looking to work in the children's book industry, would you recommend finding internships?
I'm sorry, I only heard
Sorry,
intern.
my voice is really bad.
Oh.
So, for somebody who wants to work in the children's book industry for illustration, would you recommend finding internships?
Yes, if you wanted to get into writing, working in the picture book industry, if you're an illustrator, even a writer, quickly find an organization called the SCBWI and join your local chapter. If nothing else, at least get the newsletter. It's chock full of information that can guide you and help you, and they put you in front of people that can get you published. And I've seen many people get published through that organization. There are other organizations. Highlights for Children is another place that you can try to get yourself down to the barn, to Kid Brown's barn. He's a farmer. That's what he does. He grows talented young people, and you should get by. And those organizations have boot camps and other workshops and things that can really help you to hone your craft. What that's really about, and I'll be honest with you, is that there's a stream. There's a stream that you have to get into. You have to get into that flow of people who are getting published, and those organizations are ways of getting into that stream and then starting to make connections with others, and you bump into this person over here and you meet somebody at a conference over here, and before you know it, you're getting better and better and you become published. And I've seen that sort of thing happen. So I stand by that, all right? SCBWI stands for Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. Okay, great. Yes. Yes.
Oh, me.
Yes.
So do you always use live models, and did you ever use your kids?
I have used my kids against their will sometimes. But it's a family business, so get out there and hold that pose. I do use live models when I can because it gives me a broader range of the type of faces, realistic things that I want to do, than me trying to use my imagination all the time. But when in a pinch, I have to use my imagination, but I really prefer using what I get from looking at a live model or a real person. And so I tend to shoot those myself. I think sometimes someone can give me a photograph of their child in their way across the country, and looking at that one image, I can sort of use that to sort of base the images on. But in fact, that's how I look at my images. Sometimes I'll find, I'll be outside and there's just the glint of sunlight hitting a tree a certain way, and it just sort of burns an image in my head, and I'll use that one sort of thing there to sort of build a whole series of narrative images based on that. So it's funny how one little sort of thing in time, one little segment, one little snippet can lead to something that expands and grows, and it's a pretty exciting thing to see develop. Even after 100 books, I still get pretty excited about that sort of thing.
Should we expect to see your grandson soon?
Yes, I'm working on that. He has a very distinctive look, and so I have to try to find the right story that fits what he's after. I'm getting a lot of books for little girls, and he won't put on a dress. He won't do it. So it's a timing kind of a thing there. And I was really pleased that Ron sent me this picture, because I did not know you guys had reversible walls that flipped. And you have my work, and when I leave, you're going to flip back to the Matisse and the Edward Hopper and their rotating walls there. I did not know you had that feature at the library. These are some of the other images that I'm working on recently here, and this is one that'll be coming out. They actually took the inside illustration and put it onto the cover of Margaret Weiss Brown's Celebration of the Seasons, and you'll be able to see that. Is there someone back here in the back? Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, question about books that you're telling us that you didn't create, but including Green Book.
Green Book?
About Green Book.
Okay, Green Book.
You won the Academy Award, the Oscar, but...
No, I didn't win the Academy Award. No, it did. Yes, it did. It won the Academy Award, surprisingly to some.
I know, and so I knew it won, but I never thought it was based on the original book.
Yes.
And there was more titled before Green Book, and I heard rumors that it was
That the Green Book was a mystery?
Yeah.
It may have been not widely spread because of some sort of fear that it would be shut down somehow, but I don't believe it was a mystery. It was an actual book. It was a motorist hand guide is what it was, and it would list restaurants and service stations and different places that you could get to that would serve African American customers. And that's what sort of helped you to navigate a further distance. In those days, a black family probably had a radius of about 50 miles that they could travel before running into a brick wall of Jim Crow. And so that limited their, not only migration, but it limited their movement. And the Green Book enabled them to travel farther. And so it gave more ease of access to the rest of the country, to a greater number of people. And that was a beautiful thing that was put into place to help that happen. And that has implications beyond what I could even probably describe, but you could probably imagine being able to travel farther, what that would mean to you, being more connected with maybe distant relatives or family or even jobs or whatever, you know. So it was a pretty impactful book that even today still has implications. There's a story, Calvin Ramsey told me the story of one of his uncles who was getting ready to travel to a funeral up north in Detroit, and he was living in Alabama. And everyone's in the car waiting for this guy, Grandpa. He wouldn't come out the house. And finally someone went in to get him, and he was in there tearing up the drawers looking for his Green Book. He wasn't going to get in the car, even today, to go anywhere without his Green Book. So it's still, many people did know about it. I think I remember seeing those books in my grandfather's old desk drawer, the one we're not supposed to be looking in. And I remember seeing those books. We didn't really get the implications of what they meant, but they have been sort of ubiquitous in the African American community. And many families know of this book very well. So I'm not sure how much of a mystery that was. Maybe I didn't hear your question fully, I guess, but is that what you were talking about?
Yeah. Thanks for
A
answering.
mystery. I'm going to look that up. Thank you. Yes, one more. One more question. Oh, okay. All right, settle down. Go right ahead before riot breaks out.
Twofold. One, I wanted you to go back on the rationale behind the professor not telling any of the students about the homework. And the
Yes.
second thing, how you came into the Kwanzaa stamp. I want to hear that.
Oh, the Kwanzaa stamp.
Yes.
Well, that's easy. They called me.
Wow.
And I used to get offended when people asked me that because they would ask me like this, why you? Please, I'm sorry. Maybe it should have been somebody else. Why me? Why? I don't know. I think, well, you know, that's a good question. Why me? I think Derry Noyes is the art director. She's worked with Kadir Nelson on a number of stamps, Jerry Pinkney. And I believe that by being in that stream, you know, these are sort of people that you know, we're all sort of in the same industry. She probably saw some of my work. And, I know that many people had complained about the design of the stamp and how it had been more graphic, and they wanted something a little bit more, less graphic, I guess, and more painterly and warm, I think. And so that's sort of how it all led to me being able to do it. I actually ended up painting it twice. They wanted me to paint it actual size, but I couldn't find a 3-bristle paintbrush. So I took a sheet of paper about this size, 8.5 by 11, and folded it in half. Kadir told me that little trick there is you can work a little bit larger, and I was able to get by with a little bit larger painting and work close to the deadline, so they had no choice but to take it. And that's how it was. Now, some of the ladies in the office at the down in Washington, D.C., at the National Post Office, they wanted to see Denzel on the stamp, basically. So I had to work on that father quite a bit to try to satisfy those ladies. And so I ended up doing it twice because of those ladies wanted to see Denzel. It's not exactly Denzel, but you know, I didn't like the guy I painted first. So I'm keeping that in my attic in case, I don't know what happened to that stamp there. The non-Denzel Kwanzaa stamp there, yes. Oh, I think we've just about reached our limit. Carol's giving me the evil eye there, so thank you very much for coming here to the school.